I can't believe I used to do this every week for 3 years. All right, let's go. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here. This is Rewind. I'm recording this at a pretty rough time. I apologize if you hear the trains. I put some noise reduction stuff up. Hopefully it's working. If not, I apologize in advance. Before I jump into the new news, let's talk about some stuff that happened last week that you guys brought up in the comments, putting on your superhero capes and going, you should have. I apologize that I glossed over the Fujifilm factory closures that happened here in the US. What you're talking about here is 4 US photo equipment plants are gone next year from Fujifilm, and we lose 400 jobs in this industry. Yeah, I didn't say that the factories were for their, quick snap recycle cameras or ink. I'll go over here. Quick snap recycle cameras, inkjet photographic paper, and color photographic paper, and digital printing plates. So I didn't elaborate that that's what those factories were. No, they're not digital camera factories, but they are the photo end of Fujifilm. This is 400 jobs shrunk out of this industry. Yes, Fujifilm does other things. We're going to actually jump into a story about that. But what I'm basically alluding to is this industry is hurting enough, and that's why I went right into the discussion about brand bashing. I apologize that I went a little passionate on that and blew right past this story, missing out some details. But it's still the photo side of things. It's still something that's happening negatively to the photo side of things, and it's still a shrinkage happening to this industry, which affects consumers, hobbyists, pros, everybody. The more this industry hurts, the more it gets smaller, the less options we have, the less competition we have, the more it affects everybody, jobs, and even if you're a hobbyist, to even have a selection of things, support for things you've already bought if they choose to just close down repair centers and things like that, or not make old parts for certain cameras and things like that. I'll actually get into that a little bit later too, but I just wanted to clear that up because some of you guys are like, you should have told us that it was okay. Dry off your keyboards. We're all good now. All right. Enjoy that with your anonymous avatar. Okay, let's go into something that's actually happening with Fujifilm relating to the medical industry. They're an enormous company, and they have some incredible technology, and a lot of it has to do in the healthcare system, and they're actually pivoting a lot over, especially since the pandemic, to the needs of this world, which happen to be semiconductors and chips and stuff like that. So they're leaning into the healthcare industry, which is a safe bet, right? Like the healthcare industry is going nowhere. Humans will always need help. However, they're saying Fujifilm, tough decision to accept the demise of its film and digital photo businesses to embrace healthcare and the semiconductor sectors was validated last year during the pandemic, and the company's new chief executive officer basically said that. However, Fujifilm is also saying that they are not walking away from the photo industry at all. In fact, they're letting people know, they're making sure to let people know, yeah, we're leaning into the healthcare industry, but we're not abandoning photography. They're actually really killing it there. It's just the whole idea of camera sales has shrunk a lot. The point and shoot division of cameras basically doesn't exist, right? Everybody's running an iPhone or an Android phone, smartphones in general, I should have just said that. And that's their point and shoot. But people want to have elevated choices when creating content now. That's why we're seeing camera sales at all. More people in theory are shooting than ever before. It's just not going towards what they're trying to sell you, which is a system, right? Some people might just want like a cool camera, some interchangeable lenses, create better content for their feeds, their channels. Everybody's self-publishing right now. Believe it or not, when you post something to Instagram, that's you self-publishing. You need the tools to do so if you want to go beyond just your phone. Some people are fine using just a phone. That was a bit of I digressed a little bit there. However, tangent, should have said tangent. I'm all over the place today, I'm sorry. Basically, Fujifilm has been doing a lot in technology in general, but because they have the ability to make semiconductors, chips, processors, things like that, and because the healthcare industry is more computerized than ever before, they need those supplies. We've seen a lot of things happen with the graphics cards and processors that have come out. There's been shortages, not to mention the Bitcoin and the NFTs, all the cryptocurrency stuff eating up a lot of that. And now this is just all these companies, not having the ego about something and going into another place that they can actually thrive in. In fact, this might not be completely factual, but I was told by a couple of people in this industry that Fujifilm actually took their emulsion technologies, which was for film, and pivoted over to the healthcare industry with it, to create skin grafting with that technology based on the emulsion that they're able to create, which is super interesting, which is super smart. Kodak really tried to hold things to their chest. They really tried to bull things forward, and I don't think it worked out too well for them. They still exist, clearly, but a lot of their stuff is existing on licensing, buying something and putting their name on it and putting out a product. They're not exactly like this powerhouse that we used to see, which is a heartbreak in general. Speaking of which, Fujifilm going, hey, we can't exist on just analog and film anymore, moved into digital, moved into medical and bigger industries than you can ever exist. They make some of the coolest projectors, by the way, I have ever seen, and I bet some of you don't even know that, right? You're used to seeing like Epson projectors and stuff like that. They make printers, all sorts of things. They're really enormous. I think that imaging in general just makes up, I think they say right here, is now Imaging Solutions is just 13% of the company's revenue. So clearly you can't survive on that. But yeah, they're a smart company. They're always doing their own thing. I like that they're not in the competition game of the full frame world of, you know, Canon versus Sony and all this stuff. It's pretty cool. But speaking of the film, I'm digressing like crazy, and I apologize. I promise I'll do this better. I'm rusty. It's been a while. I haven't done this show in like a year, minus last week. Speaking of Fujifilm, they are being forced to quit manufacturing the Velvia 100 film because there are some chemicals in it that the EPA says they can no longer put out there into the world. Phenyl isopropylated phosphate apparently is what it is. That kind of sucks. I will tell you, I'm a huge fan of Fuji Velvia. Back in my BMX days, this was the film we shot. First, we used to shoot Velvia 50 ISO, expose it at 64 to get more saturation. Then we switched to 100, expose it at 125, 160 ISO, get a little more saturation. However, this is 100F, which actually isn't as good on skin tones as the regular 100 that they're talking about here. However, it didn't matter about that. Back in 2004, when I used to shoot BMX for all the magazines and stuff like that, we just cared about getting those blue skies, those really punchy stickers and colors and all the graphics to look crazy. That's all we really cared about. However, if you are trying to get Fuji Velvia 100, better stock up on it now, because it looks like they're either going to have to mess with the formula or discontinue it for good. We have seen discontinued film take place and come back in other forms. We have seen independent companies take the formula of some of these films and work it into something very similar and putting it back out there. So if you're someone that's into shooting film, just keep watching this and start stockpiling it. I'm sorry, it sucks. I almost feel like when they discontinued all the peel apart instant film, I went crazy buying as many cases as I could. And then it was just a heartbreak when I was on that last pack. And let me tell you, I only have 2 packs left, including Polaroid 669, which I have a memorial to that film tattooed on my thigh. Let's get into some more uplifting news. For all you Canon people out there, this is a pretty cool update. Firmware for the R6 and the 1DX Mark III get C-Log 3 and dual recording in new firmware. Now, this isn't such a crazy thing for the 1DX Mark III, but for the R6, for this little jammer, this $2,000, maybe $2,300 price point camera, to get C-Log in it is pretty baller. I gotta say, that's pretty great for someone who is a mid-range hybrid shooter. Maybe you're someone that has a little bit of money but are just getting into shooting video. That's awesome that you have C-Log capability just from a firmware update. And this is such a testament to that. Canon doesn't leave their equipment alone when they throw it out there. They just keep wondering how they can make it better, how they can make their customer base more loyal, how they can just serve them even better. I got to give it to Canon on this one. Really cool. And of course, the Canon EOS 1DX Mark III, what a mouthful, is getting it too, but that's kind of expected. That is a flagship camera, meaning it is like a $6,500, $7,000 camera when you're done with tax and stuff like that, and maybe even shipping or whatever else. That's kind of expected. It already is a beast of a video camera in its own right. But the R6, that is very, very cool of them to do that. And I'm really excited to see where we start going with firmware once we start seeing what these new processors that we're getting in these new systems start coming to be, including like the Nikon system, which will get a new processor once the Z9 comes out, which then trickles down into the rest of their line. So all these new processors just mean that they can only get better. I keep saying that we're dealing with looking at our gear as the hardware and its potential rather than the specs when it gets released, because there's always firmware updates that unlock more and more things, including the Z series didn't even have eye autofocus. Now it has eye autofocus with multiple modes, including animal, wide, large, and all this other sorts of stuff. Fuji, a few years ago, put out a camera that only did 1080 video. Firmware update, you got 4K video. And you already bought the camera. It's free firmware update. It's just awesome. I know it gets tiring and exhausting to, which is basically the same thing, keep checking all your firmware, but it's also pretty awesome that if you do have an issue with your gear, 9 times out of 10, if you check if there's a firmware update, it almost fixes everything, and that's pretty cool. And it's also really cool that you can buy older cameras for less money and then just update the firmware, and you're unlocking all this extra ability. It's almost like getting DLC content. If you're a gamer, you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty awesome. I don't know. Let me know if you're a Canon R6 user. Let me know if you're interested in having C-Log in your C-Log 3 in your camera. Curious who bought those cameras and what you actually use them for. So let me know down in the comments. Let's talk about those flagship cameras that we're thinking are coming from Nikon and Canon. By the way, the Canon R3, I still say is not going to be a flagship camera, just a baller sports camera. But they're basically saying, don't expect it till September or later, and I can totally agree with that. Based on what I know, and you know, NDAs all over the place, but what I can tell you is from just discussions throughout the industry, there are betas out there, there are prototypes definitely out there. We've seen people with the R3 that were within arm's reach. It is still beta testing, and I would say maybe you'll see an announcement by the end of the summer officially, maybe, you know, later in the month or towards the end of the summer. But as far as pre-ordering, September, November, easily. A lot of things got knocked out of whack. We know that when the Olympics come around, all the camera manufacturers try to get their update cycle in sync with that so they can put out their new high-end camera to perform at the world stage of sports. But I don't think that's such a thing anymore. I really don't think that the Olympics is like, oh, what did they use to shoot that? I don't think it's really there anymore with that. However, you have to also think of the R3 and the Z9 as, while they might be fast cameras for sports, they're really beyond that. It's for dance, events, photojournalism, working in low light situations, getting things on the fly, being there for the moment and being able to work in any condition. You're not really doing something where you're going into a studio to set up something super deliberate. You're getting what's in front of you documentation wise, and you just need it to be there for you when you need it. And that's kind of what I think is happening with the R3. The Z9 might be higher res, and we don't know. There are no specs out for that, but that could be a flagship. The R3, I think, is going to be a really nice, fast sports camera with something like 24 megapixel sensor, 26 tops. I originally thought maybe 32, but I think that they're probably going to scale it back, make the price point a little easier, and then have a flagship camera with a higher res sensor coming out later. That's my opinion, or prediction rather. And the reason I say that is the Komodo Dragon from Red has a Canon sensor in it with a global shutter. It is APS-C, but I don't think Canon could be too far away from a full-frame global shutter. And why wouldn't that be their flagship? They could be leading the way as far as that. They tried to do that with 8K video, being the first ones to put out 8K in the R5, and then we started seeing the Alpha 1, and I think we'll probably see the Z9 with 8K that they're saying. That's just whatever. I mean, we saw Sony put 4K in full-frame cameras forever ago when the Alpha series was kicking off. Of course, the batteries were dying, they were overheating, but we saw it as a progression in technology. The R5 can do 8K, it's just gonna probably only give you so many minutes before it takes a hit with the heat issue, right? So, man, I'm on tangents like crazy today. I'm so sorry, everybody. That being said, I think the R3 will be the fast camera. And if you want to call it the R1 or whatever's coming, I think we might see a global shutter coming from Canon. They might be the one to set the tone with that technology. I know people are probably betting on Sony to do that, but even if they have the ability, there's a cycle for these things, and Canon might have already been on that track, and they've been known to battle test things hard before they put them out. Other companies tend to put out cameras like every 5 seconds and, you know, just kind of sweep things under the rug. I'm not going to say anything else more than that. Okay, speaking of all this photo processing, higher res versus whatever, there might be a new JPEG format out there, so be aware if you are someone in this industry that's got to deliver images in a certain file format. They're talking about JPEG XL possibly being the next JPEG. Now, we've heard this before, right? JPEG 2000 and HEIC and all these other formats that they're going to take over. This one actually sounds like it has some legs to it. This is all of the parameters for the JPEG XL. They're saying that you can convert JPEGs to it really seamlessly. Basically what it is, you get a smaller file size, more information in the file, more dynamic range, more color, and you're saving space. So they think that this could actually go the distance because it's actually less intensive on hardware. So if that's the case, that means mobile phones and smartphones, all that kind of stuff, can easily process these images easier than JPEGs themselves. So it might slowly shift that way. And if JPEGs can just convert over to JPEG XL, they might have the same information that were in the JPEG, but they're the same file format, talking the same language. This might actually happen. So please take a look at this. I'm going to put the link down below so that you can read up on it. This is important for all us photographers to stay up on what we are giving to our clients and what is an actual format out there. I mean, look, we also formats come and go like crazy, and I think the ones that have been sticking around are like JPEG, TIFF, and GIF. I don't know, what is it? Someone tell me in the comments, is it GIF, GIF, or GIF? I don't even know anymore. Someone always corrects you no matter what you do on YouTube, okay? However, this is something you need to pay attention to, because if this does start going forward and you're kind of left out on it and someone next to you offers a JPEG format that takes up less space, it could hurt you for clients and stuff like that. I'm not kidding. It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it's a thing. Okay, let's talk about right to repair. This has been a thing for a while now, especially if you're someone that has to deal with something like, I don't know, iPhones, where I've had this nightmare happen to me recently where the board just went bad and Apple did basically nothing for me. And if I wanted to get it fixed, there's places that told me that they couldn't get a board for it. And there was things that they were telling me they couldn't get the proprietary tools to do what they needed to do. And there's no guarantees, and it was hundreds of dollars. And basically my back was to the wall where I basically had to buy a new phone for what I would have spent to repair my old one. Well, they're basically saying that President Biden here in America is asking rules to be drafted for right to repair. This doesn't mean that you always have to repair. You still have the option to just buy a new phone or whatever it is if you want to. They're just saying that you will have the right to go to a place for OEM parts that will actually be verified, not sketchy, that Apple and other companies like them can't just have proprietary tools that's not putting out there to the world to allow for other people to fix this off. I mean, even Nikon is faulty to this. They cut out their repair program service that you could only go to Nikon now to get a repair. That means the company holds all the cards. They can charge whatever they want, take however long they want, and you're basically at the mercy of it if you don't want to just throw that piece of gear in the trash. And kind of we're doing that anyway, because it turns out that there are so many phones that if something broke on it, right? And I'm using phones as an example, but there's a lot of companies in technology, not just phones, that this pertains to. But let's say you have a broken screen, that could cost you like $400. Then you're stuck with a phone that might have a 1.5-year-old battery when they say, well, for 150 bucks more than the $400 to fix the screen, you could just get a new phone. And then people surrender the phone to the company, get the new phone, and then this sits on a trash heap with a perfectly fine board, some plastics in it, chips just sitting on a landfill, causing all sorts of e-waste. And think about the millions, if not billions, of devices that are in people's hands that just end up in the trash. Personally, I try to save as many of my old phones as I can. One, they're great backup actually, and two, there's a lot of apps on these phones that still work via Wi-Fi. Case in point, all the DJI stuff, especially with the gimbals, they have like a phone holder. Well, if I just put on the DJI app on this phone, I can still have my everyday phone not being tied up, or I can use it and message people and do things while I'm working, all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm, you know, and I also just think that every time I throw something out that's a piece of gear, I always feel guilty that, and you can call me like a hippie, whatever you want, I don't care. But I mean, it's just rotting there. And there's plenty of parts that are totally fine. There are plenty of recycling programs out there, but recycling is the last resort. You really want to reduce more than anything. And if you can have a phone keep working for you after you've already paid over $1,000 for the phone, you might want to have it work for a few years. I don't know, call me crazy. And we know that there's definitely things going out there where companies cripple the gear via software issues and stuff like that and kind of push you into an upgrading scenario. So all this is saying is that Right to Repair is getting possibly a big breakthrough by having the first ever instance of a US president acknowledging that this is an issue and asking for rules to be drafted. I don't know, it's pretty crazy. Check it out down below. There's a lot of links about this story, so read a few of them if you want to get the full story. I know I'm doing like a super summarized version of it. I'm doing the best I can. I apologize, but that's what it was. And then lastly, speaking of phones, if you do not disclose that the photo is retouched in a promoted post in Norway, it's now illegal. Meaning if you are an influencer and you put up a post of, I'm drinking this diarrhea tea, and you liquefied your photo to give you some crazy waistline you don't have, implying that the product did that for you, it's now illegal unless you specify that you retouch the hell out of the photo. And I think this is pretty awesome. I know I'm somewhat of an advocate for like minimal retouching out there. I just really do like to think about what's in front of the lens rather than what people did to an image. But this is also a matter of just truth in marketing, right? You know, just we're in a new era where people are finding new ways to market to people, influencers, right? Private people technically that are posting on behalf of a brand to promote something. And people take their word for it. And if they put out a false image implying that a product does something, or even worse than that, give a sense of body dysmorphia going on out there, right? We have kids growing up day one looking at images like this and thinking that's what beauty is and they have to be that to be accepted or validated. Believe it or not, that's a real thing. And in fact, years ago, like 2019, I pulled up this story where a well-known photographer, Rankin, or highly regarded British photographer, had teenagers 13 through 19 come to his studio. He shot the image on the left and said, retouch it however you think you would look best and put out there if you wanted to post it. And this is what they did. Rip their noses down to be minimal, cut down their chins, made them longer, larger eyes, bigger lips, and even just took off everything from their skin. I mean, look at this girl right here. All these gorgeous beauty marks totally erased off her skin. And this is what people think, or kids growing up right now think they have to aspire to be in order to be beautiful, accepted, validated, whatever it is they think that they get from this. And we have to start putting some kind of line down there. So if all they have to do is put on the bottom of a post, hey, guess what? This one was retouched, I don't think it's the end of the world. It is a nice step forward. It is a nice thing to kind of make people question, well, what exactly did they retouch? What's altered about this image? What can I believe about it? And I think there's a sense of us needing to get back to, for lack of a better term, phrasing rather, reality. Getting back to reality. Because I, for one, am really sick of going through Instagram and just seeing, first of all, cookie cutter techniques that are overly photoshopped, overly edited, color graded to death, altered lighting, whatever it is. We're like losing the craft of actually shooting. And then we put out this digital art, which is fine. If you're into that, knock yourself out. I am not hating on you. Do whatever you want. But for me personally, this is one viewer that clicks away from that type of work and looks for something that's more genuine, real, and actually I can believe, rather than look at it and go, oh, what exactly did this thing look like in the first place? I just get stuck in this mode for that. I mean, I would love to normalize things like people having texture underneath their eyes. Who knew? I mean, we're allowed to be human. Or women having pores. Did you know women's skin had pores? I didn't know that. If you look at Instagram, I didn't know that. I mean, it's just crazy to me that skin has no texture. We flatten out people completely, and then we rip away anything that we think society would deem like, ugh. And then how is it acceptable for us to be like, oh, it's overly smoothed out? Beautiful. I don't understand how that's acceptable. And if we can start kids off with accepting who they are and being psyched on just the person they are, and yes, they can aspire to be better people and maybe work on themselves personally, but they don't have to aspire to buy plastic surgery or overly retouch their images to a point where their persona on their self-published media is not even the person that actually exists. And we're actually developing people to have two personalities, I guess. I don't know, two different lives. I don't know what to say there except for it doesn't seem healthy to me in any regard. And if this is a start to getting us back to just really showing what life is, who people are, and things like that, I'm all for it. It's also not a big thing. I mean, it's just like anything else where it's like they're right sponsored in the bottom and you go, okay, I understand this is garbage. Same thing here. So just let me know down below. I could be crazy. When I talked about this the first time about the Rankin article, I got a ton of hate, all from men, by the way, who decided to tell me I shouldn't tell them what they should do. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm saying the type of work I don't like to see is overly edited. The type of work I don't believe is overly edited. And if you need to rip apart your images or feel that that's what gets you to the result you want, it's creative license and you're welcome to do whatever you want. Go for it. But I'm also welcome to just not be a part of that audience, you know? And I'm just hoping that we can get back to an audience of people that want to see what the image actually was, okay? I think the cameras do enough crazy things to them with pleasing color and all sorts of stuff. Don't get me started on that. However, let me know down below how you feel about that. I think we could all use a little less time retouching, right? I think we'd all use a little less time clicking a mouse and going back out there and shooting. You know, kind of crazy idea, right? I know this is a long one. I know it's a 10,000 tangents. I will do better on the next one, I promise. Again, I'm just getting back into this a little bit, and I keep having to stop because jerks start revving their motors or blasting their stereos out here in Brooklyn. All right, if you guys want to join me live, I do photo critiques on Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/lastxwitness. This is from last week if you want to take a look. Pretty much I pull up your images, I give you some insight to what I like about it, what I would change about it, what you probably could have thought about differently. We do some like slight editing just to see what could have been or simulate what we could have changed about some stuff. It's really cool. Everybody that's in my Discord has the opportunity to submit an image, and if you want to join my Discord, the link is down below, so go ahead and check that out. There's a lot of cool photo nerds in there that are troubleshooting and are not toxic, kind of crazy, actually helpful to each other. So if you have any questions about anything you're having problems with, join the Discord and go check out the channels and rooms in there that you can ask whatever you want, whatever you're having trouble with. People are super responsive and very supportive in there. You can also ask me anything while I'm live on Twitch. So I urge you, it's really easy to sign up if you're not part of Twitch, twitch.tv/lastxwitness. It's free to follow. You don't have to worry about that. And just join us for some cool photo nerd discussions. Other than that, you can check me out on all the other social media junk at lastxwitness. Check out my photos and work on Instagram. Yell at me on Twitter, at me there if you want to talk. Or you can even get me in the Discord if you needed to. Okay, guys? I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to bring back the shout out of the week. So in order to do that and to keep this channel actually communal, I'm going to ask you guys to write in the comment below what you shoot and leave your Instagram or social handles. Let's keep away from private URLs, your websites. I've tried this in the past and apparently people have left some really suspicious links I didn't know about. So social only. Let us know what you're about. Let us know what you shoot with maybe. Just give us a little something about what you're about and leave your social. And I'm going to start bringing back shout out of the week, which means I'll pull up your Instagram I'll pull up like 2 maybe a week and give you guys a shout out and try to help all of each other grow, because you all know the algorithms are just keeping us down, man. All right, I'm done. This is a long one, I'm sorry. All right, please hit like if you were into this video. Don't forget to subscribe, plus the bell to get notified more videos like this come out. Share it around if you want to, and I will see you guys next time. Later.